18 years of war leaves marks that never fully heal. Admiral Yuki Tanaka knew this better than most as she read the message for the third time, her fingers tight around the datapad. The Driven Collective wanted peace. After nearly 2 decades of slaughter, after burning 3 human colony worlds and killing 12 million civilians, they suddenly wanted to talk. She did not believe it for a second. The message had arrived through official diplomatic channels, coded and verified. High Speaker Drevax himself had signed it. He spoke of regret, of new beginnings, of a future where both species could prosper. The words were beautiful. They were also lies. Tanaka set down the datapad and looked out the viewport of her flagship, the Resolute. Stars filled the darkness, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, her son's ashes drifted through space, scattered after the first Driven attack. He had been 23 years old. She had not cried at his memorial. She had simply returned to duty and spent the next 18 years making the Driven regret ever touching human worlds. Now they wanted peace. Her communicator buzzed. She answered it. Admiral General Espinoza is on Secure Channel 7. Put him through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the weathered face of Raul Espinoza, head of Earth's Strategic Intelligence Division. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. You received the message, he said. It was not a question. I did. What does intelligence say? We say it stinks. Espinoza leaned forward. Our deep cover assets report that the Driven have been building ships in hidden facilities for the past 2 years, not defensive ships, assault carriers, troop transports, the kind of fleet you build when you want to end a war quickly. So the peace offer is a trap. Almost certainly, but the politicians want to take the meeting. They are tired of war, Yuki. Everyone is tired. The Driven know this. They are counting on our desperation. Tanaka was quiet for a moment. Where is the meeting? Harmony Station, neutral territory, the Driven insisted. She knew the place, a massive diplomatic station in unclaimed space, built by a species that had died out centuries ago. It was supposed to be sacred ground, a place where enemies could meet without fear. The Driven were clever. They knew that attacking a diplomatic mission on neutral ground would turn the entire galaxy against humanity, unless, of course, they could make it look like humanity started it. They will try to kill the delegation, Tanaka said. Make it look like our fault, use it as an excuse to rally other species against us. That is exactly what we believe, but we cannot prove it and we cannot refuse to attend without looking like warmongers ourselves. Espinoza paused. That is where you come in. Me? You will escort the diplomatic vessel to Harmony Station. Officially, you will command a small defensive fleet. Unofficially, you will have 3 additional battle groups positioned throughout the sector, hidden and waiting. Tanaka felt something cold settle in her chest. Protocol Cassandra. Protocol Cassandra, Espinoza confirmed. If the Driven spring their trap, we spring ours, but only if they move first. We cannot afford to be the aggressors here. The galaxy is watching. 2 days later, Tanaka stood in a conference room on Earth, facing Ambassador David Okonkwo. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes, a former intelligence officer who had traded secrets for speeches. She respected him. He was not naive. You understand what we are walking into, she said. A trap, Okonkwo smiled thinly. I have known since the message arrived, but I also know that we must go. If there is even a small chance that some faction within the Driven genuinely wants peace, we owe it to the dead to try. And if there is no such faction, then we show the galaxy what the Driven truly are. We record everything, every lie, every betrayal. And when they make their move, we make sure the universe knows who started it. Tanaka nodded slowly. She still did not believe in peace with the Driven, but she believed in Okonkwo. She believed in preparation, and she believed that humanity had not survived this long by being stupid. The diplomatic vessel launched 3 days later, surrounded by Tanaka's escort fleet. To outside observers, it looked like a modest force, enough for protection, not enough for aggression. The Driven would see exactly what they expected to see. What they would not see were the three battle groups currently moving through deep space, their drives running cold, their emissions masked. What they would not see were the intelligence operatives already embedded on Harmony Station, mapping security systems and planting hidden equipment. What they would not see was the trap within the trap. As her fleet approached the jump point that would take them to Harmony Station, Tanaka received one final message from Espinosa. It was short and encrypted. The web is larger than we thought. They are not just planning to kill the delegation. They are planning to end the war in one night. She read it twice, then deleted it. Her expression did not change. She had expected nothing less. The Driven thought they were hunting sheep. They were about to discover that humanity had sent wolves dressed in wool. The jump drives activated. The stars stretched into lines. And Admiral Yuki Tanaka led her fleet toward a peace conference that everyone knew was a lie, carrying with her the hope that when the killing started again, it would be the last time. She would make sure of that. Harmony Station appeared on the viewport like a metal flower blooming in the void. It rotated slowly against the stars, its ancient hull gleaming with lights from 100 different species. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked along its arms, bringing diplomats and merchants and travelers from across the galaxy. For centuries, it had been sacred ground, a place where wars paused and enemies could speak. Counselor Myra Volkov watched the station grow larger as their ship approached. To anyone watching, she was simply a diplomatic aide, quiet and professional. In reality, she was one of General Espinosa's best agents, trained in Driven psychology and body language. Her job was simple: find the truth behind the smiles. The docking was smooth. The welcoming ceremony was not. High Speaker Drevax stood at the head of the Driven delegation, his scales shimmering under the artificial lights. He was tall for his species, with eyes that seemed warm and voice that flowed like honey. He spoke of peace with such conviction that Volkov almost believed him. Almost. "Friends," Drevax said, spreading his arms wide. "For too long our peoples have bled. For too long we have buried our children because of misunderstandings and fear. Today we begin a new chapter. Today we choose hope over hatred." The gathered species applauded. Representatives from a dozen worlds had come to witness this historic moment. The Driven had made sure of that. More witnesses meant more species to turn against humanity when the trap was sprung. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward and shook Drevax's hand. His smile was perfect, his words gracious. Only Volkov noticed the slight tension in his shoulders. He knew exactly what he was shaking hands with. The first day of negotiations passed in a blur of ceremonies and speeches. The Driven presented gifts. They offered condolences for human losses. They spoke of reparations and trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Everything a species seeking genuine peace would say. But Volkov watched, and she saw. She saw the way Drevax's secondary eyelids flickered when he mentioned human casualties. Not grief, satisfaction. She noticed the subtle changes in pheromone levels when Driven officers discussed their hidden fleet movements, thinking no human could detect such things. She observed the micro-expressions that revealed contempt beneath every polite word. The Driven were excellent liars, but Volkov was better at spotting them. That night, she met with Okonkwo and Lieutenant Commander Priya Sharma in a secure room that Sharma had swept for listening devices 3 times. "They are lying," Volkov said simply. "Every word, every gesture. High Speaker Drevax despises us. He can barely contain his hatred when he speaks of peace." Okonkwo nodded. He had expected nothing less. What about the others? Most of the delegation follows Drevax completely, but there is one. Volkov paused. Sub-Speaker Thesson. He is younger than the others. His body language is different. When Drevax speaks of peace, Thesson shows genuine hope. When the hidden signals pass between Driven officers, Thesson seems uncomfortable. I do not think he knows the full plan. A true believer. Perhaps, or perhaps another layer of deception. I will know more soon. Meanwhile, Sharma had been busy. As the diplomatic staff attended dinners and ceremonies, she had quietly mapped the station's systems. She had identified the security blind spots. She had located where Driven commandos were hiding, disguised as service staff, and she had planted humanity's own surprises throughout the station. Jamming devices hidden in air vents, emergency force fields ready to activate at a moment's notice, weapon caches concealed behind wall panels. If the Driven wanted a fight, they would get one. Outside the station, Admiral Tanaka kept her visible fleet at a respectful distance. To the Driven, it looked like a small defensive force, easily overwhelmed. What they could not see were the dozens of sensor drones she had launched, disguised as space debris. They watched every Driven ship in the sector. They tracked every movement. And there was a lot of movement. 37 vessels confirmed, Sharma reported that night. Assault carriers, heavy cruisers, troop transports. They are staying just outside normal sensor range, but our drones see them clearly. This is not a diplomatic escort. This is an invasion fleet. Tanaka's response was calm, and our forces. Second fleet is in position behind the fourth moon. Third fleet will arrive in 18 hours. Fourth fleet is securing the communication relays. Sharma paused. We are ready. Not yet. We wait for them to move first. Everything depends on them making the first strike. On the station, the diplomatic dance continued. Okonkwo negotiated treaty terms he knew would never be signed. He smiled at enemies he would soon fight. He played his part perfectly while recording every lie for the galaxy to see. On the second night, sub-speaker Thesson approached Volkov at a reception. He seemed nervous, glancing around to make sure no other Driven were watching. You are the counselor, he said quietly, the one who studies our people. I study many things. Thesson leaned closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. Then perhaps you have noticed that not all things are as they appear. Perhaps you have seen what I have seen. Volkov's heart beat faster, but her expression remained calm. And what have you seen? He did not answer directly. Instead, he said, there are those among my people who remember what honor means, who believe peace should be real, not a weapon. He pressed something into her hand. Tomorrow night, the signing ceremony. Remember that some of us tried. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd before anyone noticed their conversation. Volkov looked at what he had given her, a small data chip. When she analyzed it later in the secure room, she found a single file containing timing coordinates and deployment orders. The Driven planned to attack during the signing ceremony. A ship would crash into the station's reactor. In the chaos, commandos would kill the human delegation. Then their hidden fleet would destroy Tanaka's ships and blame humanity for everything. Now they knew exactly when and how the trap would spring. Okonkwo read the information twice. Then he looked at Volkov with cold determination in his eyes. Tell Admiral Tanaka to be ready. Tomorrow night we end this. 26 hours remained before the signing. Ceremony, 26 hours before the Driven would spring their trap. 26 hours for humanity to prepare its own surprise. In the secure room deep within the human section of Harmony Station, Ambassador Okonkwo gathered his inner circle. Admiral Tanaka attended via holographic display, her face calm despite the weight of what was coming. Lieutenant Commander Sharma spread out diagrams of the station's layout. Counselor Volkov shared everything she had learned about Driven positions and intentions. The attack will come during the ceremony itself, Okonkwo said. A Driven ship will accelerate toward the station on a collision course with the reactor. They will claim it was a malfunction. In the chaos, their hidden commandos will eliminate our delegation and any witnesses who might tell the truth. And then their fleet moves in, Tanaka added from her ship. They destroy my visible escort, claim we attacked first, and use the incident to bring other species into the war against humanity. Sharma pulled up a tactical display. They have 37 ships hiding just outside normal sensor range. We have identified assault carriers, troop transports, and heavy cruisers. This is not a defensive force. This is an execution squad. Then we give them an execution, Volkov said quietly. just not the one they expect. The planning took hours. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake could give the Driven the excuse they needed to claim humanity had been the aggressor. First, the space battle. Tanaka's visible fleet would remain exactly where the Driven expected, appearing weak and vulnerable. But her hidden forces would position themselves carefully. The second fleet would emerge from behind the fourth moon, cutting off the Driven retreat. The third fleet would drop out of faster-than-light travel directly behind the Driven reinforcements. The fourth fleet would secure the communication relays, preventing the Driven from calling for help. "We must wait for them to fire first," Tanaka emphasized. "The entire galaxy will be watching. If we shoot too early, we become the villains." Second, the station. Sharma had already placed jamming equipment throughout the diplomatic areas. When activated, Driven communications would go dead. Their commandos would lose coordination. Their carefully planned assault would dissolve into confusion. "I have located their hidden troops," Sharma said, highlighting positions on her diagram. 18 commandos disguised as service staff. They are armed with energy weapons concealed in their uniforms. They plan to secure the main hall and eliminate everyone inside. "Can you stop them?" "I have positioned our Marines in adjacent sections. When the jamming activates, we will have approximately 4 seconds before the Driven realize what has happened. That will be enough." Third, the evidence. Okonkwo had been recording every moment of the negotiations. Every false promise, every diplomatic lie, every hidden communication that Sharma had intercepted. When the trap was sprung, this evidence would be broadcast across the galaxy. The Driven would not be able to hide their treachery. "What about Subspeaker Thesson?" Volkov asked. "He risked everything to warn us. If we do not protect him, the Driven will execute him as a traitor." Okonkwo considered this. "Can you get him to safety before the fighting starts?" "I can try, but I need to speak with him first. I need to understand if his people have others who think as he does." That night, Volkov found Thesson in a quiet observation deck, watching the stars. He seemed surprised to see her, but not afraid. "You read the data chip," he said. "I did. Why did you give it to me?" Thesson was silent for a long moment. His scales shifted colors slightly, showing emotions that humans had learned to read over years of war. Shame, anger, hope. "I joined the diplomatic corps because I believed in peace," he finally said. "I thought High Speaker Drevax truly wanted to end the bloodshed. I was wrong. He and his faction have controlled our government through fear for decades. The war with humanity is not about survival or territory. It is about power. As long as there is an enemy to fight, Drevax and his generals remain necessary." "So you betrayed your own people?" "I betrayed murderers and liars. That is not the same thing." Thesson turned to face her. "There are others who feel as I do, young officers who are tired of watching their friends die for Drevax's ambitions, scientists who want to explore the galaxy instead of conquering it, ordinary citizens who have never wanted this war." Volkov studied him carefully. His body language showed no deception. Either he was the greatest liar in the galaxy, or he was telling the truth. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "Only one thing. When this is over, when you have crushed Drevax and his fleet, remember that not all Driven are monsters. Give my people a chance to prove that we can be something better." Volkov thought about the 18 years of war. The 12 million humans dead in the first attack, the hatred that had built on both sides. Could there ever truly be peace with a species that had done such things? But looking at Thesson, she saw something she had not expected. She saw a being who was risking his life for principles that humans themselves claim to believe in. Honor, truth, the hope for a better future. "I will tell the Admiral," she said. "No promises, but I will tell her." Thesson nodded. It was enough. As she walked back to the human section, Volkov passed windows showing the stars outside. Somewhere out there, Tanaka's hidden fleets were moving into position. Somewhere out there, Driven commanders were preparing their own attack, confident that victory was assured. They had no idea that humanity had been ready for this moment since the day the invitation arrived. They thought they were hunting prey. They were about to learn that humans had simply allowed themselves to be cornered because a cornered human was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. 20 hours until the ceremony. The counter-trap was set. Now all that remained was the waiting. The Grand Hall of Harmony Station had witnessed 1,000 treaties signed across 1,000 years. Its transparent walls showed the endless stars, reminding all who entered that their conflicts were small against the vastness of space. Chandeliers of crystal and light hung from ceilings built by a species that no longer existed. It was a place of history and hope. Tonight, it would become something else entirely. Representatives from 14 different species filled the observation galleries. They had come to witness peace between humanity and the Driven, to see an end to a war that had frightened the galaxy. Cameras broadcast the ceremony across 100 worlds. Everyone was watching. That was exactly what Ambassador Okonkwo wanted. He stood at the signing table, dressed in formal diplomatic robes, his face showing nothing but cautious optimism. Across from him, High Speaker Drevax smiled with warmth that did not reach his eyes. The treaty document lay between them, filled with words that would never matter. Around the room, Driven honor guards stood at attention. To any observer, they were ceremonial protectors. Okonkwo knew better. He knew they carried hidden weapons. He knew their orders. He had seen them train for this moment through intercepted communications. He also knew that hidden in the walls, floors, and ceilings around them were devices that Lieutenant Commander Sharma had spent days planting. Jamming equipment, emergency barriers, and human marines waiting in adjacent rooms, ready for the signal. "My friends," Drevax began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. 18 years ago, our peoples made terrible mistakes. Fear drove us to violence. Misunderstanding fed the flames of war. Today, we extinguish those flames forever. He spoke beautifully. Every word was designed to paint the Driven as reformed aggressors seeking redemption. Every sentence positioned humanity as equally responsible for the bloodshed. The watching galaxy would remember this speech when the trap was sprung. They would remember the Driven seeking peace and humanity rejecting it. At least that was the plan. Okonkwo stepped forward to give his response. His speech was shorter, more measured. He spoke of hope tempered by caution, of trust that must be earned over time. The words meant nothing. He was simply waiting. Waiting for the Driven to move first. It happened just as the treaty was being prepared for signatures. A Driven officer at the edge of the room touched his ear, receiving a transmission. His body language shifted, muscles tensing. Around the hall, other Driven guards made similar subtle movements. Outside the station, Admiral Tanaka watched through her sensor drones as a Driven patrol ship broke formation. Its engines flared as it accelerated toward Harmony Station on a collision course with the reactor section. "Contact," she said calmly to her bridge crew. "They are moving, all ships to battle stations. Wait for my command." In the Grand Hall, the Driven honor guards reached for their hidden weapons. High Speaker Drevax's smile finally became genuine, the predator revealing itself at last. And then everything went sideways. Sharma activated the jamming field. Every Driven communication device went dead simultaneously. Officers who had been receiving orders suddenly heard nothing but static. Guards reaching for weapons found themselves cut off from coordination, each acting alone instead of as a unified force. In that moment of confusion, humanity struck. The human marines burst through doors on 3 sides. Of the hall, weapons already firing. They had trained for exactly this moment, rehearsed every angle and firing line. The Driven guards, elite soldiers all, were still dangerous even without coordination. But they were not prepared to be the prey instead of the predators. The firefight lasted 11 seconds. When it ended, 18 Driven commandos lay dead or restrained. Not a single human delegate had been harmed. Representatives from other species cowered behind overturned tables, but the Marines had been careful. No innocents were caught in the crossfire. Outside the station, Tanaka watched the Driven ship continue its suicide run toward the reactor. She had approximately 40 seconds before impact. "Defense grid," she ordered. "Fire." The station's weapons, reprogrammed by Sharma days earlier, locked onto the incoming vessel. 3 concentrated beams struck it simultaneously. The ship vanished in a brilliant explosion, its pieces scattering harmlessly into space. "All fleets," Tanaka continued, "execute Protocol Cassandra." Across the sector, human warships powered up their drives and weapons. The second fleet emerged from behind the fourth moon. The third fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly behind the hidden Driven armada. The fourth fleet secured the communication relays, cutting off any call for reinforcements. The Driven fleet, positioned for an ambush, suddenly found itself surrounded. Back in the Grand Hall, High Speaker Drevak stood frozen. His guards were dead. His suicide ship had been destroyed. His carefully planned trap had not just failed, it had reversed. Ambassador Okonkwo stepped forward, holding the unsigned treaty. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fire. "Did you really think," he said quietly, his voice carrying in the stunned silence, "that a species that crawled out of one of the deadliest worlds in the galaxy would walk blindly into such an obvious trap?" Drevax could not find words. For the first time in decades, the master manipulator had nothing to say. "You planned this for months," Okonkwo continued. "Maybe years. You thought we were desperate for peace, willing to believe any lie. You thought we would be so grateful for the chance to stop fighting that we would ignore every warning sign." He stepped closer to Drevax, close enough to see the fear finally appearing in those alien eyes. "You forgot one thing. Humans are not prey. We have never been prey. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed us. We do not survive by being naive. We survive by being ready." Outside, the Battle of Harmony was beginning. Inside, Drevax was placed in restraints while the galaxy watched in shock. The trap had been sprung, but not on humanity. Space around Harmony Station erupted into fire and light. The Driven fleet, 37 ships strong, had been positioned to crush a small human escort force. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by 3 full battle groups that had appeared as if from nowhere. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the tactical display with the calm of a surgeon performing a routine operation. This was not revenge, though part of her wished it could be. This was precision. This was ending a war. "Second Fleet has engaged the Driven eastern flank," her tactical officer reported. "Third Fleet is preventing their retreat. Fourth Fleet confirms all communication relays are secured." Enemy response: "Confused, their coordination is poor. They were expecting to attack, not defend." That was the difference between an ambush and a battle. The Driven had positioned their fleet for a killing blow against unsuspecting prey. They had not prepared for a fight. Their formations were designed to overwhelm, not withstand. And now those formations were collapsing. Tanaka watched as human cruisers tore into the Driven lines from 3 directions simultaneously. The Driven fought back, certainly. They were not cowards, but they had never faced a coordinated human assault of this scale. They had believed humanity was exhausted, desperate, ready to accept any peace offered. They had been very wrong. On Harmony Station, the fighting continued in scattered pockets. Most of the Driven commandos had been neutralized in the Grand Hall, but some had been positioned elsewhere. Lieutenant Commander Sharma led a team through the corridors, hunting down the last of them before they could harm civilians. "Contact left," one of her Marines reported. 3 Driven soldiers had barricaded themselves in a maintenance junction, firing at anyone who approached. Sharma studied the situation for approximately 2 seconds. "Flash grenades, then we move." The grenades flew. The flash blinded the Driven's sensitive eyes. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency. 30 seconds later, the junction was clear. Elsewhere on the station, Counselor Volkov was protecting a group of diplomatic staff from a nearby species that had been caught in the crossfire. They huddled in a secure room while sounds of combat echoed through the walls. The door opened. Volkov raised her weapon. Subspeaker Thesson stood there, his hands empty and raised. "I am not here to fight," he said quickly. "There are civilians trapped in Section 7. Driven soldiers are using them as shields. I can get you in through a maintenance corridor they do not know about." Volkov hesitated for only a moment. Everything she knew about reading Driven body language told her he was telling the truth. She made her decision. "Show me." They moved through the station together, an unlikely alliance. Thesson led her through forgotten passages while explaining the situation. A group of Driven hardliners had taken over a recreation area, holding 20 civilians from various species as hostages. They were demanding safe passage off the station. They would not get it. Volkov contacted Sharma and coordinated a two-pronged approach. When the attack came, it was swift and overwhelming. The hostages were freed without a single civilian casualty. Thesson himself tackled one of his own soldiers who had been about to execute a prisoner. In space, the battle reached its peak. The Driven fleet, surrounded and outgunned, began to fracture. Some ships surrendered immediately, their captains recognizing the hopelessness of their situation. Others tried to flee, only to find human vessels blocking every escape route. A handful fought to the death, their commanders too committed to Drevax's vision to accept defeat. Tanaka accepted every surrender with the same cold efficiency. Prisoners were taken. Ships were disabled rather than destroyed whenever possible. This was not about slaughter. It was about demonstrating that humanity could be merciful even in victory. The final Driven warship surrendered 4 hours after the battle began. Its captain sent a simple message of unconditional surrender, his voice carrying exhaustion and disbelief. But the true victory had already been won elsewhere. Throughout the battle, Ambassador Okonkwo had been broadcasting. Every intercepted communication showing Driven planning for the ambush. Every recording of Drevax discussing the murder of diplomats. Every piece of evidence proving that the peace offer had been a lie from the beginning. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy understood. The 3 species that Drevax had hoped to recruit as allies instead demanded answers. Their diplomats issued furious statements condemning the attack on neutral ground. The ancient laws of Harmony Station had been violated, and the Driven had been caught doing it. More importantly, fractures appeared within the Driven collective itself. Military officers who had not been part of Drevax's inner circle were horrified by what their government had done. Scientists and civilians who had believed in the peace process felt betrayed. Young soldiers who had thought they were defending their people learned they had been pawns in a power game. Within hours, a new faction emerged. They called themselves the Reformist Coalition, and they were led by officers who rejected Drevax's methods. They reached out to humanity through emergency channels, begging for a chance to prove that not all Driven were responsible for this treachery. Tanaka received their message on the bridge of the Resolute, surrounded by the wreckage of the fleet that had been meant to destroy her. She read it twice before responding. "Tell them we are listening," she said finally. "Tell them that humanity does not punish an entire species for the crimes of its leaders, but tell them also that we will never be surprised again." The Battle of Harmony was over. The war that was supposed to end humanity had instead ended the Driven collective as it existed. And somewhere in the stars, Admiral Tanaka allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, just justice delivered with overwhelming force. Her son would have approved. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Harmony. The station had been repaired, the debris had been cleared, and for the first time in 18 years, genuine negotiations were taking place between humanity and the Driven. But everything was different now. High Speaker Drevax stood before a galactic tribunal facing judgment for crimes against diplomatic protocol, attempted mass murder, and violations of the ancient Harmony Accords. The evidence was overwhelming. His own communications, intercepted and broadcast across the galaxy, left no room for denial. His faction had been dismantled, its members arrested or scattered. In his place, the reformist coalition had taken control of what remained of the Dreven government. They were led by officers who had refused to participate in Drevax's scheme, scientists who had always opposed the war, and young leaders who believed their species could be something better than conquerors and liars. Subspeaker Thesson had become one of their most visible figures. His actions during the battle, helping to save civilian lives and standing against his own soldiers, had made him a symbol of what the Dreven could become. He stood now in the same grand hall where the trap had been sprung, but this time there were no hidden weapons, no secret plans. This time the peace was real. Ambassador Okonkwo sat across from the new Dreven delegation. The treaty before them was different from the one that had never been signed. This one included war reparations for the human colony worlds that had been destroyed. It included the return of occupied territories. It included prisoner exchanges and cultural programs designed to prevent future misunderstandings from becoming wars. It also included something unprecedented: a joint oversight council where humans and Dreven would work together to monitor both sides for signs of aggression. Trust, but verify. The humans had insisted on it, and the new Dreven government had accepted without argument. Tanaka was there as well, though not as a warrior this time. She had been given a new assignment, establishing an early warning network across human space, ensuring that no species could ever surprise humanity again. It was important work, though part of her missed the simplicity of combat. She met with several Dreven officers who had fought against her at Harmony. There was no friendship between them, not yet, but there was respect. They understood each other as warriors who had done their duty. That was something. Counselor Volkov had been appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the reformed Dreven government. She would work alongside Thesson to build genuine understanding between their peoples. It would take years, perhaps decades. Old hatreds did not die easily. But she had seen Thesson risk his life for peace, and she believed it was possible. Lieutenant Commander Sharma received a promotion and a medal for her actions during the battle. She accepted both with quiet dignity, then immediately returned to work. There would always be threats to humanity. Someone had to stay vigilant. The signing ceremony was brief and without drama. Okonkwo and the new Dreven High Speaker exchanged documents. And handshakes. The watching representatives from other species applauded, but cautiously. They had witnessed what happened to false peace offers. They would wait to see if this one was genuine. 1 week later, Admiral Tanaka visited a memorial on one of the recovered colony worlds. The planet was still scarred from the Dreven attack 18 years ago. Some areas would never fully recover. But people had returned, rebuilding homes and lives on ground that had once been ashes. The memorial stood in the center of what had been the capital city. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, representing those who had died in the first hours of the war. Among them was a single name that Tanaka had traced with her fingers many times over the years. She placed a small photograph beside the stone. Her son, smiling on his graduation day, so young and full of hope. He had believed in humanity's future among the stars. He had believed that understanding between species was possible. He had been killed before he could see any of it come true. The war was over now. It would not bring him back. Nothing would ever bring him back. But perhaps his death had not been meaningless. Perhaps the peace they had finally achieved was built, in some small way, on the sacrifices of those who had fallen. Tanaka did not cry. She had spent all her tears long ago. But she allowed herself to hope, for the first time in 18 years, that the future might be better than the past. Back on Earth, Ambassador Okonkwo addressed the planetary parliament. The chamber was packed with representatives and citizens who had come to hear his assessment of the peace. "We did not survive this war because we were the strongest," he said. "We did not win because we were more violent or more clever than our enemies. We won because we refused to be naive. We hoped for the best and prepared for the worst. That is what it means to be human." He paused, looking out at the faces of those who had lived through 18 years of fear and loss. The Driven thought our desire for peace made us weak. They learned otherwise. Any species that mistakes human kindness for stupidity will learn the same lesson. We extend our hand in friendship to anyone who approaches with honest intentions. But that same hand can become a fist when trust is betrayed. The Parliament erupted in applause, not celebration of victory, but recognition of survival. 5 years later, a teacher stood before a class on Harmony Station. Her students were a mix of species, including young humans and Driven learning side by side. She spoke about the history of the war, the Battle of Harmony, and the peace that followed. Always remember, she told them, that peace is precious, but it must be built on truth, not deception, on respect, not fear. That is the lesson humanity taught the galaxy, and that is why we must never forget. The children listened, human and Driven together. The scars of the past had not fully healed. Perhaps they never would. But somewhere in those young faces was the future that so many had died for. A future where trust was possible, because humanity had proven it would never be fooled again.